The airport felt like a moving river of people, bags and tired voices, and Maya held Lena's hand as if the crowd could pull her away. Lena was 6, small and quiet, wearing a yellow sweater and hugging a soft bear with one ear bent down. It was Lena's first flight, and every sound seemed louder than it should be: the rolling wheels, the beeps, the announcements. Maya tried to make it feel like an adventure, pointing at planes outside the glass, naming colors, counting seats in a calm voice. Lena nodded and tried to smile, but her fingers stayed tight around the bear, and her steps stayed careful. They had practiced at home, how to show tickets, how to find seats, how to breathe slow when nerves came. At the gate, a line curled around the chairs like a long ribbon, and the screen above flashed boarding groups in bright letters. Maya checked the tickets again, then again, even though she already knew they were correct. Lena looked at the uniforms and the shiny badges, then looked down, as if the floor was safer than faces. A man behind them talked about a meeting, a woman ahead of them complained about the delay, and a baby cried somewhere near the window. Maya leaned closer to Lena and whispered that they would sit together, that the sky would feel like a gentle swing. Lena asked if the plane would shake, and Maya said maybe a little, but it was normal, like a bus on a rough road. When they reached the front, a flight attendant named Rose stood by the scanner with a practiced smile that did not reach her eyes. Rose took Maya's boarding pass and looked at the screen, then looked at Lena, then back at the screen again. Her eyebrows tightened, and the smile turned into a flat line, as if something about this small family annoyed her. Rose spoke in a voice that carried farther than it needed to, telling Maya to keep the line moving and to hold the child close. Maya answered politely, explaining that Lena was nervous and just needed a second to step forward without tripping. Rose exhaled sharply, like patience was a favor she did not want to give. Lena tried to obey quickly, but her backpack slid on one shoulder, and the bear slipped from her arm and almost fell. She bent to catch it, and in that moment Rose tapped the counter and repeated herself, louder, as if volume could fix fear. People nearby turned their heads, some curious, some uneasy, some pretending they had not heard. Maya's cheeks warmed, not from guilt, but from that familiar feeling of being judged before speaking. She lifted the bear gently and handed it to Lena, then asked Rose, still calm, if they could have a moment to settle. Rose's eyes narrowed, and she leaned forward, speaking close, her words sharp, as if a mother's request was a challenge. Maya stepped between Rose and her daughter, keeping her voice steady even as her heart started beating too fast. She told Rose that Lena was a child, that there was no need to speak harshly, that they were ready to board. Rose stiffened, and her hand hovered near Lena's shoulder as if she meant to guide her roughly. Lena flinched without thinking, the kind of small movement that comes from instinct, and the bear pressed against her chest like a shield. Maya saw it, and something in her face changed, not anger, but a firm refusal to let the moment become worse. She asked for a supervisor, and the words sounded simple, but the air around them turned heavy. Across the seating area, a man named Daniel looked up from his phone, drawn by the tone more than the words. He was traveling alone, wearing a gray jacket and carrying a small bag, the kind of person who blended into crowds. Daniel had spent years learning how quickly small conflicts could become something bigger, especially when power and pride got involved. He watched Rose's posture, watched Lena's shrinking shoulders, watched Maya's careful control, and he stood up quietly. He did not rush like a hero in a movie, he moved like someone who had made hard choices before. As he walked closer, he noticed other passengers watching, and he noticed how few of them were willing to speak first. Rose lifted her chin and repeated that rules were rules, that delays were unacceptable, that children needed discipline. Maya did not argue about rules, she only asked for respect, and she kept one arm behind her, protecting Lena without squeezing. Lena's eyes were wet, but she tried to blink the tears away, as if crying would make everything worse. Daniel reached the edge of the gate area and stopped at a polite distance, listening long enough to understand what was happening. He saw the way Rose focused her frustration on a child who was doing nothing wrong, and he felt his jaw tighten. Then he stepped forward, placing himself where Lena could be seen clearly, not hidden behind fear or noise. Daniel spoke in a calm voice that cut through the tension without raising it, and Rose turned toward him, surprised. He said there was no reason to speak to a child like that, and no reason to crowd a mother who was trying to keep things peaceful. Maya looked at him with cautious hope, the kind that comes from being disappointed too many times. Lena stared at Daniel's face, trying to decide if he was safe, and her fingers loosened a little on the bear. Around them, the gate area seemed to hold its breath, as if everyone was waiting to learn what kind of world this would be next. Daniel stayed steady, not loud, not dramatic, just present, and that presence changed the shape of the moment. Rose opened her mouth to defend herself, and Daniel glanced toward the security desk nearby, ready to make sure this ended the right way. Daniel stood between Rose and the small family with a calm posture that felt solid. His shoulders were relaxed yet unmoving, and his hands stayed open at his sides. The noise of the terminal softened as nearby voices lowered without instruction. Maya felt a shift in the air like a storm slowing before rain. Lena peeked around her mother's arm and studied the stranger with careful eyes. Daniel spoke slowly so every word carried without force. He asked for space and respect and nothing more. Rose straightened and tried to recover her authority with clipped words. She explained rules again and spoke of schedules and pressure from delays. Her voice stayed sharp, but it lacked the confidence it held earlier. Daniel listened fully without interrupting, which only unsettled her more. He nodded once, acknowledging her words without agreeing to them. Maya noticed how his calm made shouting seem unnecessary. Passengers nearby leaned closer, pretending to adjust bags while listening. Lena shifted her feet and hugged the bear tighter against her chest. Her breath came uneven and Maya rubbed small circles on her back. Daniel lowered himself slightly so he would not tower over the child. He spoke gently, telling Lena she was safe and seen. The words were simple, but they landed like warmth. Lena nodded once, trusting the tone even if she did not trust the place. The bear dropped a little from her chin as fear eased. A woman from the second row of seats cleared her throat and spoke up. She said she saw the whole exchange and it did not feel right. Another man agreed, saying the child had done nothing wrong. Their voices were quiet but steady, and more followed. The gate area shifted from silence to shared awareness. Rose looked around and realized she was no longer supported by quiet. Her posture tightened and her jaw set in frustration. Daniel thanked the passengers for speaking and asked staff for a supervisor. He did not raise his voice and did not accuse anyone. He focused on safety and fairness, using words that could not be twisted. Maya felt relief but stayed alert, knowing moments could turn quickly. Lena leaned into her side and watched the adults with tired eyes. The bear slipped again and Maya caught it before it fell. That small care grounded them both. Airport staff arrived and listened as Daniel explained what he witnessed. He spoke clearly and without emotion, like someone trained to report facts. Rose attempted to interrupt but was asked to wait her turn. Maya was invited to speak, and she described the fear plainly. She did not exaggerate and did not soften the truth. The staff nodded and wrote notes while the crowd stayed quiet. Lena sat on a chair, swinging her feet slowly. While the review continued, Daniel stayed close but gave the family space. He checked on Lena with a soft glance rather than words. She met his eyes and offered a small, uncertain smile. Maya mouthed a thank you that carried more weight than sound. Daniel nodded, accepting it without pride. The moment felt human rather than official. Time moved slower but steadier. The supervisor made a decision to pause boarding for review. Some passengers sighed, but no one complained loudly. The situation had taken on a seriousness that discouraged impatience. Rose was asked to step aside while the matter continued. She did so stiffly, eyes fixed forward. Daniel remained still until the staff finished speaking. Order returned without force. Maya guided Lena to a quieter corner near the window. Planes moved outside like slow animals against the sky. Lena asked if they were in trouble and Maya said no. She said sometimes adults make mistakes and others help fix them. Daniel stood nearby, giving privacy without leaving. Lena traced shapes on the glass with her finger. Her breathing finally steadied. The supervisor returned and assured Maya the matter was being handled. He apologized for the distress and thanked Daniel for stepping in. Daniel responded briefly saying anyone should have done the same. The supervisor shook his head and said not everyone does. Maya felt that truth settled deep. Lena looked up at Daniel with new understanding. Trust began to replace fear. As boarding resumed, the crowd moved with a different energy. People looked at Lena with kindness rather than curiosity. A woman offered her seat near the window and smiled warmly. Maya accepted and thanked her softly. Daniel watched from a distance, making sure the family boarded safely. Lena waved with her free hand, the bear tucked under her arm. The moment closed not with noise but with care. The plane cabin felt quieter than the terminal, though engines hummed beneath the floor. Maya guided Lena into their seats near the window and helped her buckle carefully. Lena pressed her forehead to the glass, watching workers move slowly below. Her hands still shook, but the shaking faded with each deep breath. Maya sat beside her, keeping one arm close without holding too tight. Passengers settled around them, placing bags overhead and sliding into narrow rows. Some glanced at the small family with gentle looks and small nods. Lena noticed a woman across the aisle smile and wave softly. She lifted her hand and waved back, unsure but hopeful. The bear rested on her lap like a small guard. Daniel took his seat a few rows behind where he could still see them. He placed his bag under the seat and leaned back, letting tension ease. He replayed the moment at the gate, thinking how easily it could have gone wrong. Years of experience told him silence often caused the most harm. He chose not to be silent and felt steady about it. As the plane prepared for departure, a crew member walked the aisle. Her voice was calm and her movements careful and respectful. She stopped by Maya and Lena and spoke kindly, asking if they were comfortable. Maya thanked her and said they were doing better now. Lena nodded, clutching her bear and listening closely. The plane began to move slowly, and Lena gripped the armrest. Maya explained each sound with simple words to keep fear away. She said the plane was like a giant bus learning to move. Lena smiled at that image and relaxed a little. Outside, the lights blurred into long glowing lines. When the plane lifted, Lena gasped, then laughed, surprised by the feeling. Her laughter spread to Maya, who felt tears press but did not fall. Daniel heard the sound and smiled quietly to himself. Moments like that mattered more than reports or titles. They meant safety had returned. During the flight, snacks were passed and Lena accepted one carefully. She thanked the crew member in a small voice that grew steadier. Maya watched her daughter regain confidence with each normal moment. Fear slowly turned into curiosity and wonder. The sky outside looked endless and soft. Daniel walked past their row once on his way to the back. Lena looked up and held out a small drawing made on a napkin. It showed a tall figure and a small girl standing close. Daniel knelt slightly and thanked her with warmth. He folded the drawing carefully and kept it safe. Maya whispered another thank you and Daniel nodded gently. He told her she handled everything with strength and patience. Maya said strength sometimes came from being tired of fear. They shared a quiet understanding without many words. The aisle filled again with movement and sound. As the flight continued, people slept, read, or watched screens. Lena traced clouds with her finger on the window. She asked if the sky ever ended, and Maya said it kept going. That answer felt comforting in a way she did not expect. Daniel listened from behind, thinking of the same thing. When the plane began to descend, the cabin lights dimmed softly. Lena felt calm enough to close her eyes for a moment. Maya rested her head back, breathing evenly. Daniel looked around at the passengers, now strangers again. The moment at the gate felt distant but important. After landing, people stood and gathered their belongings slowly. Lena waited patiently, holding her bear and backpack. She felt older somehow, like she had learned something hard and true. Maya took her hand and guided her forward. Daniel waited until they were safely ahead before moving. In the terminal, Lena turned and waved one last time. Daniel raised his hand and smiled without stepping closer. They walked away into the crowd, smaller but stronger. The day had changed them all in quiet ways. And none of them would forget it. The days after the flight passed quietly, but the memory stayed close. Maya and Lena returned home carrying more than bags and coats. Lena spoke about the plane to anyone who listened. She talked about the clouds, the drawing, and the man who stood up. Maya listened carefully, knowing stories helped settle fear. Each retelling made Lena stand a little taller. The house felt warmer with her voice filling it. At school, Lena drew pictures during free time. She drew planes, tall buildings, and people holding hands. Her teacher noticed the change and praised her confidence. Lena smiled proudly and shared her story with simple words. Some children listened closely, others nodded without questions. The classroom felt safe and kind that day. Maya felt relief hearing this later. News of the incident traveled beyond the airport. Passengers shared what they saw in calm, respectful ways. People talked about choosing to act instead of looking away. Comments were mixed, but many spoke with gratitude. Maya avoided reading too much, protecting her peace. She focused on Lena and their quiet routines. That choice felt like strength. Daniel returned to work, carrying the drawing in his pocket. He placed it on his desk where he could see it each day. It reminded him of responsibility beyond titles. Colleagues asked about the sketch, and he shared the story simply. Some nodded, others grew thoughtful. The office felt different after that conversation. Awareness spread quietly. One evening, Daniel called his sister and told her everything. She listened without interrupting and thanked him for stepping in. She said moments like that changed children forever. Daniel looked at the drawing again and agreed silently. He knew the truth of that feeling. It stayed with him long after the call. The night felt still. Maya noticed Lena sleeping better as days passed. The fear that once woke her faded slowly. They talked openly about feelings and safety. Maya answered every question honestly but gently. Trust grew stronger between them. The bond felt deeper than before. Healing moved at its own pace. At the airline, changes were discussed quietly. Training sessions were planned and policies reviewed. The goal was respect, not punishment. Some staff welcomed the change, others resisted. But the conversation had started, and that mattered. Small shifts often led to lasting ones. Progress moved slowly. Lena asked one afternoon why the man helped them. Maya said some people choose kindness even when it is hard. Lena thought about this seriously. She said she wanted to help people too. Maya hugged her, feeling proud and hopeful. The lesson felt powerful and real. The future looked brighter. Daniel visited a park on his day off. Children played, laughed, and ran freely. He watched them, thinking of Lena. He hoped she felt safe wherever she went. The drawing stayed in his wallet, worn at the edges. A quiet promise rested with it. To act when needed. Life continued with work, school, and simple joys. But something had shifted beneath the surface. Maya felt stronger, Lena felt seen. Daniel felt renewed in his purpose. The world had not changed completely. But one moment had changed 3 lives. And that was enough. Months passed, and the memory of the flight settled into something quieter and steadier. Maya noticed how Lena walked with more confidence through busy places. She no longer hid behind her mother when voices grew loud. Instead, she held her bare and lifted her head with calm curiosity. The world still felt big, but it no longer felt unsafe. Maya carried her own change in small daily ways. She spoke with more certainty at work and in public spaces. Fear no longer guided her choices the way it once had. She understood now that asking for respect was not a burden. It was a right that needed no apology. Lena shared her story during a school activity about bravery. She spoke slowly, choosing words with care. She said bravery was when someone helped even without knowing you. Her classmates listened with wide eyes and thoughtful silence. The teacher smiled, knowing the lesson reached deeper than books. At home, Lena kept drawing and taping pictures to the wall. Most showed people standing close together. Some showed planes, some showed open skies. One picture showed a small girl holding a bear with many adults around her. Maya saw protection and hope in every color. Daniel continued his work, carrying the quiet weight of that day. He never spoke of it as something special. To him, it was simply choosing not to ignore harm. Yet the drawing stayed with him as a reminder that ordinary choices could leave lasting marks. One afternoon, Daniel received a letter forwarded through proper channels. It was from Maya, written with care and honesty. She thanked him again and shared how Lena was growing stronger. Daniel read it slowly, feeling warmth spread through him. He placed the letter beside the drawing on his desk. The airline announced new guidelines focused on care and patience. Training sessions emphasized listening and calm communication. Some employees resisted, but others welcomed the clarity. Change did not erase the past, but it shaped the future. That effort mattered to many families they would never meet. Lena asked one evening if she would see Daniel again. Maya said maybe not, but that was okay. She said helpers stayed with us even when they were gone. Lena nodded, holding her bear close. She said she would remember how it felt to be protected. Daniel visited the same airport months later for another trip. The gate felt ordinary, filled with the same noise and movement. He watched families pass, noticing small moments of kindness. A staff member spoke gently to a nervous child. Daniel smiled, seeing the ripple continue. Life moved forward without grand endings or loud applause. But something important remained steady beneath the surface. A child learned she mattered, a mother reclaimed her voice. A man trusted the power of stepping in. And the world became just a little kinder because of it.